You're now listening to the Amateur Hour, known as B30. When executed properly, listeners should have received some biblical educational content in 30 minutes or less. Alright people, first time in months, I haven't used that weirdo 1920s sports announcer voice to intro this segment because I'm going to try to hit it hard, hit it fast, and get right into the point without beating around the bush. For starters, a loyal listener asked me to discuss the whole Bill Nye versus Ken Ham science versus religion debate that took place earlier this month. To be honest, I didn't bother watch it because 1, it was 2.5 hours long. Number 2, I could probably guess what the major theme of the debate was. The pro-science side thinks it's far more superior than religion, and the pro-religion side thinks science is inadequate, and that intelligent design or creationist thought holds all the keys to unlocking the mysteries of the universe. So what I did instead was I found someone who live tweeted the whole thing, and I got the gist of the debate in less than 15 minutes. Now you folks are thinking, dude, you didn't watch the debate, so you pretty much have no idea what you're talking about. Well, my response is, I never know what I'm talking about, regardless of the issue or topic. But the reason behind my laziness is that I don't want to listen to the fancy, schmancy academic discourse that may or may not have occurred. Like, you know, those fancy words like, well, your presupposition, well, your axiom is, well, the dogmatic statements and your current worldview. Like, dude, really? I really don't have time for those terms. Yeah. So, why don't I do you all a favor and just break down the whole science versus religion discussion into, like, basically 2 main points. The first thing I found problematic about this public debate event was the 2 parties who were involved. Now, Bill Nye the Science Guy has a mechanical engineer background, and Ken Ham is an environmental microbiologist or something. Don't get me wrong, both men are very accomplished academically in their own right, but considering their specialized fields of expertise in each discipline, I felt like they weren't the most suitable candidates to talk about this particular topic. Let's put it this way. If you're having a culinary competition to determine who is the best in, I don't know, French baking, you don't have like a sushi chef and a pasta chef as your final 2 contestants. I know, food is food. Who's to say a sushi or a pasta chef can't like bake stuff? But it just makes more sense for the sushi and pasta chef to stick to their own respective niches and the bakers to compete in the baking events, right? Thus, to bring it back to the science and religion context, not to name drop, but perhaps evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins, author of The God Delusion, may have been a more suitable choice than Bill Nye to represent the science side. Now, Dr. Dawkins is a bit more unapologetic and more in your face, but I think he would have been more comfortable fielding certain tough questions during the debate. For example, when Bill Nye was asked how consciousness could evolve from matter, he happily threw up his hands and said, "Don't know, that's the great mystery." He had the same response when he was asked where the atoms that made up the Big Bang came from, and yet again he goes, "Don't know." Now, I appreciate his honesty, but he didn't do justice representing his evolutionist and atheist brethren. I'm sure Dr. Dawkins, for instance, would have supplied a more informative answer. Now, to be fair, Team Religion in the debate, represented by Ken Ham, also had their bumps in the road too. Ham has a credible science background, but in my opinion, he lacked the theological and biblical training to offer insightful answers to skeptics. And this deficiency was quite apparent when his young creationist view of the world was confronted with the problem of celestial bodies that are clearly much older than 6,000 years. And what did Ken Ham have to say in response? God has all the answers. Humanity doesn't. Period. So very open and shut, not exactly the most satisfactory answer. So I like to think the Oxford teaching fellow and Christian apologist Alistair McGrath may have given a more satisfactory answer to that very legitimate question. What I'm trying to say is, these guys are awesome samurais, but the problem is they are attending a gunfight. So as a result, Nye and Ham spent like a good chunk of the time sidetracking about examples of, like fish sex, and I think they were speculating the logistics and details of building Noah's Ark. But with that being said, it's not all negative for both sides. Bill Nye's main stance was quite solid in the fact that religious claims most often lack observational evidence, and they can't be tangibly perceived through the 5 human senses. For Ken Ham, he also had a strong point saying scientific methods are not always absolute in certainty and accuracy, and he used a rock dating example where a 65,000-year-old tree fossil was wedged in rocks that are supposedly aged at millions of years old. So which item was dated wrong? But nevertheless, let's keep this train rolling, and on to my second point. Science and religion are discussed in the context of a debate. The nature of a debate is someone has to win, someone has to be right, and the other party has to be wrong. But why does one side have to win? Why can't an intelligent person be respectful to both science and religion and use them as legitimate means in your quest for universal truth? To me, a truly objective, open-minded, and progressive person would give science and religion equal weight and importance to understand the laws of nature. So my take-home message here is we erroneously put science and religion in this false dichotomy where they're against each other, when in reality, why can't you pursue the possibility that they can be used to complement each other? I know it sounds crazy, but people centuries ago tried it. During the 19th century, some of the first scientists in the Western world were wealthy, educated, white, and Christian. For example, Sir Isaac Newton, the gravity, the apple falling on his head guy, Christian. And the OG of all evolutionist thought, Charles Darwin, who wrote the atheistic Bibles, so to speak, Origin of Species. That dude had a religious background too. My point here is these learned men had science and religion at their disposal, and they used both to help them understand the laws of nature. For Sir Isaac Newton, he started practicing science with a reoccurring objective or hypothesis. An intelligent creator is behind the natural forces of the observable world. Now, some of you skeptics may say Newton lost his objectivity since he could be looking for results that only confirm the existence of God, which is a fair point. But here's the thing, though. Because he was a scientist, there was always data to back up his inferences. So it's up to the peers to review his work, critique it, and test it if it can be replicated. As for Charles Darwin, on the other hand, perhaps to the scientific community he appeared more impartial. Some may even call him an agnostic, because a young admirer once asked him about his religious views, and he had this to say: "This grand and wondrous universe, with our conscious selves, arose through chance? Seems to me the chief argument for the existence of God. But whether this is an argument of real value, I have never been able to decide." End quote. So my original point remains. Truly enlightened and learned men put their personal biases aside and give science and religion equal importance in their quest to uncover the mysteries of life and existence. And if you don't believe me, I will conclude by quoting the late Carl Sagan, American astrophysicist, and ironically, Bill Nye's college professor and mentor. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years, and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, the notion that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does a disservice to both. Now, rationalists out there might interpret Carl Sagan's quote as saying science is the driving force behind spirituality, not religion. Now, that is a highly plausible understanding, but the indisputable message here is science and spirituality, which in most cases is religious in nature, should not be mutually exclusive. All right, that's it. I'll stop here, and I'll let you folks decide. Science and religion. Friends or foes? Okay, thanks for listening, and goodbye.